We're joined in the studio by our guest tonight, the Managing Director, Rural Electrification Agency, Ahmad Salihijo. You're welcome to Weekend File.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with what the agency has so far achieved through solar-powered interventions. I would want to mention just the universities. Let's put it out holistically.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this program is very timely, where we highlight alternative sources of energy, especially renewable energy. What we've been doing at the REA has been centering around providing power through renewable sources, especially solar mini grids, solar home systems, for communities that are unserved and underserved within the country. And we've done that through various channels of funding, some through the federal government funding, some through private sector financing, through our programs such as the Rural Electrification Fund, the Nigerian Electricity Program, and also some funding that is coming through the World Bank and the Africa Development Bank. I think one good achievement that we have done, despite the delivery of these projects, as you've mentioned, across infrastructure in universities, hospitals, and various communities, is we've been able to at least work with private sector developers, where government provides the enabling environment for the private sector to come in and make the necessary investments. And I think given the numbers that you have mentioned earlier during the program, you'd see that it's very clear that we are unable to cover that gap of 40% or almost 80 million Nigerians that do not have power only through government funding. So it's very important to have an environment where the private sector will come in, given their own funding mechanism and the expertise, to see how we can stimulate and grow that particular market.
Well, by its name, Rural Electrification Agency, one would believe it's mainly at the hinterlands and remote areas.
That's
so that
right.
They can also benefit from electricity or power supply. Yeah. So let's look at this recently launched Solar Power Niger project. How is it going?
It's been going very well. Of course, every program you put out there, it takes a bit of time for the various stakeholders to fully understand the program and continue to benefit from it. But so far we've partnered with the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, for instance, where they have guaranteed a transaction of 7 billion naira for 100,000 units that was launched a few months ago by His Excellency the Vice President in Jigawa State. So the program aims to power or take power for 5 million connections for 225 million people, and we look to create at least 250,000 jobs from that. One good thing with that program is that it's one of those programs that I mentioned to you that is meant to stimulate private sector participation. So today, government has brought in that funding from the Economic Sustainability Plan, where the private sector is partnering with various government agencies, as I mentioned, the NDPHC, and also state governments are also coming into that particular space where, we are identifying areas within the country that are unserved, and private sector is coming in and commercially driving the deployment of solar home systems within the country.
All right, health care delivery is very paramount to any government, especially at the rural areas. So how is your project or the agency, making impact along that axis? I mean, talking about health care delivery at rural areas and then the solar energy.
So with healthcare, I think we were sort of forced in the corner last year when the pandemic started. If you recall, His Excellency, the President, mentioned, government agencies coming to the help of the country in terms of how we can ensure that we provide the necessary support, especially for our frontline colleagues who were unfortunate enough to be handling this pandemic. And our ministry, the Federal Ministry of Power, also indicated that it's important for its agencies to provide, within its own mandate, some of these energy alternate solutions for hospitals. So within the start of the pandemic, we were able to power 4 isolation centers, one here in Abuja as part of the teaching hospital in Gwagwalada, and also two isolation centers in Lagos and one in Ogun State. And it was really, really impactful because we realized that there's a nexus between power provision, clean, reliable power with services that you provide at hospitals, especially when you think about powering, some very critical equipment like ventilators and some of the equipment that you cannot afford for them not to have power for even a few minutes, because life is very, very important. But one good thing we saw with that is that intervention actually stimulated other international development partners to also come in and show support here. So as I speak to you, the World Bank has committed to providing 50 kilowatt peak systems for 100 more centers nationwide. One good thing with that is that we have been able to identify those healthcare facilities that are quite large and that also continue to provide healthcare services even hopefully beyond COVID. And in addition to that, they have also committed to doing 400 primary healthcare centers and another 200 that are also currently being implemented through the federal government's budget. So as you can see, there has been a vast intervention within the healthcare systems, and what has become very, very clear is that there is a need to have reliable energy throughout our healthcare facilities.
Especially at the rural areas.
Absolutely.
Now that vaccines are coming, they will also need to be stored in very cold devices, and most of them will be taken to the rural areas. So in that regard, what is going on with you and that, let me say, project?
Yeah, so I mean, that's those are one of the things with the cooling systems that is very, very critical, because some of them need to be stored at very low temperatures.
Exactly.
So what we are deliberately doing now is powering those healthcare facilities with clean, reliable power, and what we hope to do is hand them over as well to continue the program around private sector financing, and to ensure that the private sector continues to operate and maintain them within the confines of that particular community. So yes, the alternate power solution we are providing would give us support, and we are also doing a bit of work in identifying exactly where these primary healthcare centers are, especially the ones that are currently storing some of these vaccines as you speak to.
All right, let's pause on the discussion for a while as we now go on another. Ahmad Salihijo, Managing Director, Rural Electrification Agency. Now, those two reports we saw harped on the impact of your agency and others alike on schools, particularly tertiary institutions, as well as agriculture. Now, how is that?
And I was happy earlier on in your report when I saw the Usman Danfodio University in Sokoto, because that was one of the interventions that was done by the Ministry of Power through the REA for providing electricity to tertiary institutions. So for the phase 1 of that project, we have been able to complete 5 of them. We have a total of 9 universities on the phase 1 and 1 teaching hospital, and they are nearly all completed now. And then again, as we saw in the other interventions, the development partners have also stepped in as part of the Nigerian electrification project, and then we're doing a phase 2 under the World World Bank, which carries 8 universities, and we're doing another phase 3, which is carrying about 7 universities through the African Development Bank. And then we had an approval initially for 37 universities. We've been able to do 24, and then right now we have another extra 13 that we look to continue to fund through this particular intervention. For agriculture, I think one critical thing that you find is that all the programs we also try to do, we try to emphasize on the productive use of the solar energy that we take to those communities. So we don't only look at providing electricity, but we also look at how does that electricity enhance the livelihood of our rural dwellers. And the good thing is that the solar technology is now improving, and we have bigger systems that are able to support, as you mentioned in your reports, micro and small businesses, and we're able to support them in that vein where the power that you are taking to them is actually helping them and is actually enhancing their economic status.
Okay, let's look at the sustainability of these projects, going forward.
So with sustainability, because the projects are being delivered through various means of funding, I think the sustainability is mainly for the projects that are currently being financed through government. So even with the universities, as we mentioned earlier, we have gone through a whole sustainability plan now with the universities where they are able to continue operating and maintaining those solar power plants that we have built for them. And in addition to that, with projects that we have delivered on behalf of communities, we usually form a cooperative called Rural Electricity Users Cooperative Society, where each of the projects that we have built, that cooperative society is currently working with the developers and ensuring that the facility continues to be maintained in partnership with the private sector developers. So just recently we were able to sign such agreements with a community in Cross River where they have continued the maintenance of that mini grid in partnership with the developer. In addition to that, you did mention private sector, and in projects where the private sector is operating, like for the Rural Electrification Fund or for the Nigeria Electrification Project through the performance-based grants, the private sector, because there's an expectation that the community would be paying for that power, remains throughout the life of the project. And with that being said, if the private sector has also made that kind of investment, they would usually ensure that the plan continues to run, because the operation of that plan would depend on the kind of cash inflow that they are having through payment of those tariffs.
Now, a lot of people will be wondering, all these projects, being done at rural areas, are they done for free, or are the benefactors or beneficiaries, are they paying for them?
Yes, so depending on how the project is structured, there are some that are delivered as an intervention by the federal government, for instance. And for that, what we emphasize is to ensure that we have a sustainability plan that would carry out that project. However, with projects that have been delivered through private sector financing, those projects are currently being paid for by the rural communities.
How affordable?
They are affordable in the sense that the consumption in rural communities, you find that is very, very low, because at some of your reports have shown most rural communities within a household would need a light bulb or a fan system. So you find out that their consumption is few watts of energy. So given that that is the case, and they are able to pay so that they also own some of the infrastructure with the solar home systems as well, so you do find that it's quite affordable for them to be able to pay.
Okay, we're talking energy transition here, so let's also go to this very important area. What role would you want to see or expect to see Nigerian youths play in this regard?
The Nigerian youth would play a very, very critical role here, and at the REA we've been able to launch some programs under the Rural Electrification Fund. We recently launched a research and innovation hub where we are inviting the Nigerian youth to come in and help the REA in doing research around understanding technologies to use for rural electrification. So for instance, there's a challenge on understanding how biomass can be used for electrification of rural areas, small hydros, and even the cold chains that you mentioned earlier. You know, these are all things that we are engaging the youth on. And also with the energizing education program that we have, not only did we look at youth, we also looked at female engineers as part of the STEM program, where they participated in the development and construction of those power plants. And I'm happy to mention that after those plants have been built, what we're also finding is that some of these universities are actually employing, you know, the students that participated in that program, and they are currently part of the sustainability of the whole plan. So I think the youth would continue to play that role in terms of at least ensuring that we create the right opportunity for them and the right chances for them to continue to have employment in this sector.
We are not praying for it, but then are there challenges?
There's definitely challenges, and I think one of the major challenges continues to be funding. As you have mentioned, you know, the electricity gap is very, very wide. You know, so currently we are working tirelessly to ensure that we have the required data that we need. So I think that is a second challenge to the funding. So we are continuing to identify where these unelectrified Nigerians are. We've been having support from various development partners to help us come up with a mapping, you know, of where all these unelectrified Nigerians are. But however, at the REA and the Ministry of Power, we continue to try and validate, you know, the data that we have. So in essence, if we continue to do that, you know, we are continuing to now match that gap that we are seeing through these exercises to the funding that is coming in, both from the federal government, from the private sector, from the international development partners. So we want to continue to demonstrate that there is a need to continue funding this sector so that we are able to bridge the gap of electrification in the country.
Well, most of your projects at the moment are on phase 1, right?
Well, not
so the question now, you know, on the lips of many people, I guess, will be when will you be able, you know, to reach out across the rural areas there, because we have many of them in Nigeria.
Yes, I think it's a Herculean task because, as you mentioned, there are quite a lot of unelectrified Nigerians as we speak. But I think there has been improvements as we continue to work within the sector, especially in improving the power infrastructure that we have, but given the growing population as well, is that even if you continue to cover them through the on-grid infrastructure that is currently being revamped and is currently growing, you know, you find that more populations are propping up in also more unelectrified, more areas where continue to have this off-grid communities. So I think for us, our work continues, and this is why, you know, we have a slogan that will continue to power Nigeria one community at a time at the REA.
Finally, from us, Salihijo, you know, most of your inventions and projects may not have the capacity of carrying things like iron and the rest of them, which of course that could also be used at the rural areas. How sensitized are the beneficiaries of these projects towards that so that they don't damage these projects?
Yeah, so as part of the sustainability, there's a continuous advocacy for them to understand, you know, so when the project is delivered, you know, through the REUCs I mentioned, there's continuous advocacy and sensitization for them to understand the capacity of the plan that they've been delivered and what can the plan take or not. But as I said to you earlier, because right now the technology is also growing, you do find solar home systems, especially that can take on, you know, not ions per se, but more of this productive use appliances like sewing machines, you know, like solar for irrigation. So there are various of those that have the high capacity to be able to be powered by these solar home systems. But in situations where there's a lack of that capacity. The technology does allow for, you know, some of those high consuming capacity items not to be able to go onto the system, because the breakers would be able to stop that from actually being powered by the mini grid. So the private developers put in that kind of technology to stop some of the high capacity equipment going onto it.
Thanks indeed for sharing your thoughts with us on Weekend File tonight, and we wish you good luck.
Thank you very much.
We'll be talking with the Managing Director, Rural Electrification Agency,